If you're a recent college graduate about to embark on your first day at a new job, or you're considering living in a foreign country, you've probably noticed that people think differently. Their problem-solving approaches and thought processes can be worlds apart from what you're used to. Well, guess what? It's all about mental models. Mental models are the patterns in our brains that help us solve problems and make decisions. They shape how we see the world and play a significant role in our daily lives. In this video, I'll walk you through the fascinating world of mental models with 3 relatable examples. Making lunch decisions, parenting strategies when a child is sick, pricing strategies for entrepreneurs. I'll also reveal how your mental models influence your life, your actions, and your ability to adapt to new challenges. But here's the exciting part: not all mental models are created equal. Some can lead us astray, like the availability heuristic that makes us fear unlikely events while ignoring more common risks. The good news is, you can learn and adapt new mental models. Our brains are incredibly flexible thanks to neuroplasticity. In this video, I'll share 7 unique mental models that have shaped my life and have the potential to transform yours. These are the kinds of mental models that aren't instinctive but can make a world of difference in your understanding of the world and your problem-solving skills. Before we dive in, remember to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and stay tuned for the entire video to gain some valuable insights. Let's start with the first mental model. Assume there's something you don't know. Back in 1982, there was a guy named Ray Dalio, and he was really good with money. He thought that all the banks in the United States were going to have big problems. So he decided to bet all his money, as well as the money of the people who trusted him to invest for them, that the stock market would go down. It was a huge bet, like betting everything he had. He was wrong. The banks didn't crash, and he lost all the money he had put on the line. It was so bad that he had to let go of all the people who worked for him and basically start his investment business all over again. Now, if we jump to today, you'd find a very different Ray Dalio. He's not overconfident anymore. In fact, he might be one of the most humble and cautious people you could meet. He's learned to put in more uncertainty into his money strategies. He's also made sure that one big mistake won't ruin him. And he's come to realize that what he doesn't know is way more than what he does know. But this isn't just about money. It's about how people in general tend to act. You see, there are a couple of reasons why we often act like we know everything. First, it's because we have pretty big egos, and saying you don't know something can feel like admitting you're not very smart. Second, our brains like to focus on what we do know, so it's easy to forget about what we don't know. When we act like we know everything, we often make super detailed plans. The problem with these plans is that they can easily fall apart because there's always something we don't know that can mess things up. It's kind of like what military commanders say, no plan survives the battlefield, or like what Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. It's a lot better to accept that we don't know everything. Not only does it keep us humble, but it also helps us learn and adapt faster. When we think we don't know everything, we're more open to new ideas. And that's a good way to get smarter and be better at handling life's surprises. Ray Dalio learned this lesson the hard way, but it's a lesson we can all benefit from. Now, moving on to our second mental model. Knowledge becomes invisible with experience. When you practice a skill over and over, it becomes like second nature. You don't have to consciously think about it anymore. Take driving a car, for example. In the beginning, using the blinkers and brakes felt like you had to really focus on them. But after years of driving, you do these things almost automatically. Now, this is a good thing because it makes you more efficient. You don't need to use up too much of your thinking space to do things you're skilled at. But there are some downsides to this. First, when a skill becomes automatic, it's hard to teach it to someone else. You don't even think about why you do what you do. So explaining it to others is like digging up information that's buried deep in your brain. Second, if you're really good at something, it might not feel that way. You make it look so easy that you might not even realize how skilled you are. Lastly, this can lead to a problem where you just keep doing things the same way, even if there might be better ways. To avoid this, you need to take on more challenging tasks that push you out of that automatic mode. These challenges make you try new and better solutions. It's like breaking free from autopilot and reaching for excellence. Now, shifting our focus to the third mental model, memory strengthens by retrieval. When you're studying for hours and find it challenging to remember the information, it might feel like your brain isn't working properly. But the issue might not be with your brain. It could be with how you're studying. Here's the thing. All types of reviewing and studying aren't equally effective. Researchers have discovered that trying to recall what you've learned actually strengthens your memory much more than just rereading the material. Testing your knowledge isn't only a way to measure what you know, it actively improves your memory. In fact, scientists consider testing as one of the best study techniques they've found. For an even bigger memory boost, here's a tip from science. Space out your self-testing sessions. In other words, revisit the material just when you're on the verge of forgetting it. This technique is known as delayed retrieval, and there's strong evidence supporting its effectiveness. So, to enhance your memory and make your study sessions more productive, focus on self-testing and spaced repetition. It's like a secret weapon for better learning. Now, moving on to our fourth mental model, optimization. Albert Einstein, the famous physicist, had an interesting habit when he worked at Princeton University. Instead of using the regular sidewalk to get from one place to another, he would often cut across lawns and walk through hedges. Why did he do this? It wasn't because it saved him a lot of time, it was because he had a unique way of thinking. He always wanted to find the absolute best way to do things, even something as simple as walking from point A to point B. Einstein's mindset was like how people play strategic games, such as the Pokemon trading card game. In those games, there's always a right move, the one that gives you the best chance of winning when compared to all other options. So, he approached life the same way, treating everything he did as a puzzle where he had to find the best solution. He was constantly searching for the most strategic way to approach tasks, even if it meant rewriting a paragraph multiple times to find the perfect words. However, not everyone thinks this way. Most people tend to be satisficers, which means they stop looking for new ideas once they find something that's good enough. For instance, when you're on vacation, you might choose to satisfice by taking it easy, enjoying a leisurely stroll, and savoring the moment instead of rushing from one tourist spot to another. But when you're dealing with significant challenges or problems, it's often better to optimize. In chess, for example, you don't just make the first decent move you see, you look for the best move. The same principle applies in business. You aim to improve and optimize rather than settling for good enough. So, the way you approach a situation depends on whether you want the best possible outcome or if good enough will do. Now, let's dive into the fifth mental model. First, principles thinking. After PayPal went public in 2002, Elon Musk decided to focus on space exploration. His journey into space began with a trip to Russia, hoping to buy one of their retired rockets, specifically an ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile, without the nuclear warheads. However, the Russians asked for $21 million for just one rocket, which Elon found too expensive. On his way back home, Elon faced a big question. How much would it cost to build a rocket myself? Now, if you were in his shoes, you might take the easy route and simply equate the cost to what the Russians were charging. But Elon did something different. He broke down the problem into its basic parts. The cost of building a rocket, he realized, involves the price of materials, along with the expenses for engineering and labor to assemble it. By approaching the problem this way, Elon discovered that building a rocket could be much more affordable than he initially thought. This innovative way of thinking is known as first principles thinking, a concept that dates back to Aristotle. Elon Musk often talks about it because he believes in its power. It's a method where you break down complex questions into their fundamental elements to find the most logical and cost-effective solutions. This approach is not only useful in space exploration, but in many aspects of life, including job interviews at tech companies. When asked challenging questions like, how many refrigerators are in New York City, instead of guessing, those who employ first principles thinking would break it down by thinking about the population, average refrigerator ownership, and the number of restaurants and grocery stores in the city. It's a more demanding method, but can lead to more effective and accurate answers when faced with difficult questions. Now, shifting our focus to the sixth mental model, everyone has an agenda. As a historian researching Julius Caesar's campaign to conquer Gaul, your primary task is to uncover the truth about these events. However, you face a significant challenge. The primary source of information about Caesar's conquest of Gaul is Caesar himself. When you examine Caesar's writings, you notice that most of his accounts are filled with self-praise, highlighting his heroic achievements and exceptional leadership. Now, should you unquestionably believe every word Caesar wrote? The answer is likely no. Caesar had his own agenda. He wanted to paint himself in the best light possible to gain support and admiration from the Roman people. This means he may have exaggerated or distorted the truth to achieve his goals. This situation highlights an important principle for historians and critical thinkers. You should never take information at face value. Instead, it's essential to question the motives of the source. Why are they presenting this information, and can you rely on its accuracy? This principle also applies to the work of intelligence analysts, like those in the CIA. When they receive information from various sources, they always consider why someone is providing this information and what they hope to achieve with it. In everyday life, people often tend to trust information readily without delving deeper into its origins or motives. This might be because humans instinctively trust authority figures, a behavior that might have evolved to ensure our survival. However, unquestioning trust in authority figures can lead to accepting false or biased information. To better understand the world and make informed decisions, it's crucial to learn not to trust everything you hear or see. For instance, when buying a used car, it's wise to have a trusted mechanic inspect it instead of relying solely on the seller's word. Similarly, when seeking advice, consider multiple perspectives rather than blindly following one person's opinion. In essence, the key is to be cautious, think critically, and verify information independently, as complete trust in others can sometimes be misplaced. And now, let's explore the seventh mental model, quantum thought. Imagine you're the absolute worst poker player in the world. You make terrible choices, like trying to win with almost impossible hands and giving up on really good ones. Now picture a situation where you get to play poker with the best players globally. To make things fair, the organizer says you can see your opponent's cards whenever you want, and they have to show you. That means you'd never lose, right? Poker is all about having the right information. The more you know about what cards your opponents have, the smarter your moves can be. Now, professional poker players are like detectives. They try to guess what cards their opponents are holding, but it's not easy because there are so many possible card combinations. Often, you can't be sure of their exact hand. If you try to pick one specific hand for them, you'll be wrong a lot. So, these poker pros do something smart. Instead of trying to guess one exact hand, they think about a bunch of possible hands that make sense based on how their opponent is playing the game. This collection of possible hands is called their range. Here's a simple example. Imagine you're playing a game like Texas Hold'em, and the first cards on the table are high-value cards. Your opponent makes a big bet. What could be in their range of hands? Well, they're telling you they might have a strong card, like an ace. But they could also be bluffing with a bad hand. A good poker player keeps both possibilities in mind while playing. Now here's the tricky part about us humans. We don't deal well with not knowing things, meaning we don't naturally think in ranges. Instead, we often choose one option and believe it's right until proven wrong. Even a genius like Einstein did this once. He had two ideas about the universe, one where everything is predictable, and another where randomness and unpredictability happen. He stuck with the predictable idea even without strong evidence. The issue with this one possibility way of thinking is that there's usually more than one possibility in most situations. If you stick to just one and ignore the others, you'll often make mistakes. Imagine being able to think about multiple possibilities all at once. It's like a quantum particle holding multiple states at the same time. We'll call this quantum thought. It's about considering lots of possible realities all together and not just focusing on one. This kind of thinking can be super helpful, especially when life is full of things we can't be certain about. Now let's focus on how to apply these mental models in life. You can't just watch one video about mental models and suddenly become an expert at using them. Thinking is something your brain does, and it's wired a certain way. If you want to change how you think, you need to change how your brain works. And how do you do that? Well, you practice. So here's what you can do. Look for opportunities in your life to put these mental models to use. Keep an eye out for situations where you can ask yourself what you might not know, or think about different possibilities, or figure out how to do something better. Every time you use one of these mental models, your brain starts to change a little bit. Another way to learn is by playing strategy games. They're fantastic for picking up these mental models. For instance, playing poker can help you understand quantum thought. And if you play chess, it's a great way to learn about optimizing. Changing how you think is a bit like building a new skill. It takes practice. So, keep your eyes open for opportunities to use these mental models in your daily life. And don't be afraid to play some strategy games to help you get even better at it. Your brain will thank you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss an upload and you can enjoy the excellent content I send your way.